Failures are inevitable. No matter who you are, what you do, you are certainly going to encounter some failures or struggles in your life. However, they have the potential to completely change your life and make you achieve your dreams as well. Hello everyone, welcome to If I Had Not Failed on News 24 with me, Mansi Agarwal. This is the show where we talk about failures. We dissect failures in a way that we can normalize them. In a society that's increasingly obsessed with success and success stories, I try to speak to our distinguished guests and I try to understand the stories of failure, struggle, stress and sadness behind all of that success. Today our guest is a lady that's an example for an entire generation. A lady who not only metamorphosed from a shy little girl into a strong entrepreneur. A lady who is a strong advocate for women's rights. A lady who walks the talk. A lady who was the first president of the FNCCI, a primarily male-dominated organization in Nepal. Yes, you guessed it right. She is none other than Miss Bhavani Rana. And I'm so proud that we have her here with us today. Namaste ma'am, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with us and welcome to Yakin Yeti. Thank you so much ma'am.
Namaste, it's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad ma'am. We've been hearing about you for such a long time and every time I've heard about you, every time I've gotten a chance to interact with somebody, they've always told me about this wonderful icon of strength that you are. We know you for all your successes, we know you for the power that you bring to the table. But here's my question. Have you ever failed? If so, what has been your greatest failure?
Actually, I have not faced any major failure in my life. And then I feel that failure is kind of a learning process in life. It's kind of experiment you're doing in life, different kind of experiment. And from there, I think you know what you have to do, for the betterment of coming days and all. So actually, I consider failure, it's connected with your weaknesses, your shortcomings. So if I can go back to my childhood, actually as a child I was very shy and very timid also, very not open, and I could not really, give my opinion because I would feel, what if I'm wrong, So, but the other hand, I have an elder sister, she was very bold, very vocal, and most of the time I used to take her help to communicate with people. And yes, it was difficult for me. And as a normal child, I also had a dream. That time my father was Anchaladis. Anchaladis actually in Panchayat time, during Panchayat time, the king used to appoint, in 14 Junes, he used to appoint Anchaladis, a head of that zone, a kind of public figure or a leader of that zone. And I had a dream of becoming like him, I took him as a role model. And during my school, after the school gets over, like winter vacation and summer vacation, I would travel with my father. And then I would see him, how he was performing his activities and all, the public speaking and all. So I would always feel, oh, I want to be a leader, but I don't know, I was confused which kind of leader. It could be political leader, a social leader, or maybe a business leader also. But I wanted to be a leader. But somehow, my character was not matching with my dream. And then I was struggling, and my parents knew about my dream also. And then I was struggling. I was to feel, maybe it's a wrong profession, wrong career I'm going to choose and all. So I was a little confused also, and then I was struggling myself, why, maybe I'm not born for that kind of dream which I'm dreaming. So at a point I felt that maybe this is wrong, so I should compromise with my dream and then maybe think of something else, choose a career where I don't have to face the public. I could work quietly. But my father, I always remember, my father told me, don't ever compromise with your dreams. If you dream, you have to fulfill it, and you can, but you have to be determined, you have to work for it. And my mother, on the other hand, she was a very strong woman, and she always supported, and then she would always say that you are a girl, you know, like whichever profession you choose in life, but you have to be financially independent, you know, like that. So I think then I kept on moving. So after school, I went to college in India, and some of my teachers also helped me. And then they would say, you know, you have the quality, but you have to help yourself, you know. And somewhere I felt, you know, like something inside me was giving me a strength. I would feel that I could do it, and I wanted to do something different in life. So I think slowly I was like being a shy person to a little bit bolder, you know. I was changing myself. And then after some time I got married. So my husband actually, he's got business in Nepalganj. That's a western part of Nepal. So I went there, and then I wanted to work with the women's groups also. So you must have heard of Sati organization, who's working for women upliftment, women's rights and all. So I devoted my time with working with different kinds of women, different groups of women and all. And then suddenly I realized that, you know, like women, they know about their rights, but knowing their rights, like they can't just, like they don't have self-confidence to really act towards their right, you know. And then for that, you have to be sound, financially sound, you know. So, and I felt that women entrepreneurship is very important. So then I founded Women Entrepreneurs Association also in that area. So trying to work with different groups of women, trying to work with community also. So giving different kind of skill and trying to really boost their morale to become an entrepreneur also, you know, to earn, you know, like to be financially independent. And during that time, I got associated with the local chambers also, like Nepalganj Chamber, Bardia Chamber and all. And then where I had to do a lot of public speaking and all, you know. And then still I was not ready for that. You had to do a lot of bhashan, you know, in a lot of places and all. So I would write my speeches, and I would recite in front of the mirror, you know, like how many times, I don't know. But my mother-in-law was also another strong woman. She was, in fact, the first Pradhan Pancha, you know, Lady Pradhan Pancha. It's like a mayor during Panchayat time, and then also a member of parliament. So she would always like support me. My in-laws also, they really supported me. So I think change, to bring change, I think it'll take some time. So I consider failure as your weakness, you know. So you have to overcome that, and you learn it. So it didn't happen friction of second, but it took, I think, many, many years for me to come out from that shyness, you know, and then to voice your own opinion, to be vocal about it. So that was one phase of my life. And then after that, of course, I entered FNCCI. So.
And then, as they say, the rest is history, and you, within a very short span of time, in fact, you rose the ranks in FNCCI, so much so that you found yourself as the president within your 13th year of being a member. At that point, now, when I hear your story, it seems almost unreal to me that a girl who was shy, who didn't speak up, wrote your speeches, practiced in front of a mirror, you know, didn't have this level of confidence in interacting with people, managed to get into a primarily male-dominated organization, and not just get in, but make your mark there, and very strongly so. What was it inside of you that gave you A, that confidence, B, was it a person that was giving you that support and confidence?
I feel like I wanted to really fulfill my dream, you know. I wanted to do something different, you know. I wanted to be a leader, you know. So later on, I thought maybe I want to lead a business organization, since I belong from the business background, especially my husband's side, you know. So then, of course, like I joined FNCCI, I was nominated at the first time. That was like around 15 years back. 15, 16 years back. So I was involved in Federation of Women Entrepreneurs Association. So in fact, I'm also a founder member of that. So they would send one woman to FNCCI, you know, they would recommend. So out of 65, 70 men in that board in FNCCI, one woman used to be nominated, one seat was allocated for women, you know, and then every time someone from FWIN could represent. So I think they chose me, so I went there. So I was quite, I mean, when I first, when I entered FNCCI, it was something different. It was a different world for me, you know, like I was working only with women groups and maybe a community, some of the men and all, but there I see out of 70 men, I'm the only woman, you know, in that board also. So somewhere I felt there's a gender disparities. Somewhere like I felt maybe like my voice is not, my voice will not be heard also, you know. So it was a little, I was struggling that moment also, but I feel that my seniors also, even the associate members, you know, like they really supported me, though I was a nominated member, but I had a lot of experience, the exposure which I got from the grassroots, you know, and working with the partner organization, international organizations and all, that was my plus point. So they would feel that I should contest in the coming election as a member. So first I was a little reluctant, but later I thought maybe this is the field, you know, like which I was dreaming, you know. So I said okay, and then I contested. I'm the first woman to be elected as a member also there, you know. So all my voters were men. And then I got the highest vote also. But that time it was easy because out of 14 men, I was the only woman. Yeah. So in the FNCCI, whenever there is an election, there's a panel, you know. So, but I got the votes from both the panels, saying, oh, one woman in 14 men, you know, and we don't have women, elected women till now, so why not give a vote? So even I was asking for votes, saying, one Mahila Matra, you know, please give me the vote like that. So it was easy, but like that was not the end. So when I got elected as a member for the first time, then I was heading the women's committee, because there are about 16 committees and women are always given the women committee, you know. But there also I performed. I went to all the districts and all, you know, and then I got some support from the international partners, some from the ministry and all. I visited a lot of districts and all. I think almost out of 77, I visited 70 districts, you know. And then I was obtaining for the higher position and all. So when you are obtaining for the higher position, it gets, I mean, worse, you know, like it's difficult.
More difficult, of course.
More difficult. It's not like you're standing for a member and all. So it was like difficult, and it was very difficult to compete with men also. Because it's like, I think our mindset is still the same, you know, though we feel that we are changing and all, but I think that generation, the mindset, what we think of women, is the same. And then they would say, she's a woman, maybe like we should vote for her, but still, you know, will she be able to run the organization? You know, there was a question from a lot of people, and then even some of my seniors, they said like, do you think you'll be able to visit the districts, go for campaigning and all, you know, like sometimes we have to travel in the night and use a lot of finances involved and all. So I said, of course, I can, you know, I could do what a man can do, and please don't vote for me because I'm a woman, you know, but vote for me that I'm a capable person, you know. So I think then I reached, I feel very proud that I could lead the FNCCI, the men's, always the men used to lead that organization. So I became the president. Successfully, I conducted my tenure also. So that feeling gives me very, I think it was quite a proud moment for me.
I have 3 little things that I want to ask you as a follow-up to that. Firstly, you said, I found it difficult to compete with men. Do you think because men and women have different rules, or they perceive the rules of the same game differently?
Well, like I feel in Nepal, you know, when you go for campaigning and all, you know, like maybe the men can whole night they could campaign, you know, and then there are different ways of campaigning and all. But sometimes when you try to do the same kind of activities, you are taken in a wrong way, you know, just because of your gender. But personally, if you ask me, I don't feel any difference. So, so I think the exposure, the mobility, you know, the way they work is totally different how women could do it, you know. So in that way, like it was a little difficult. And then what I feel women can never, like we are quite responsible, and we don't want to really blame others, you know, like, but men, they could do that very easily, you know. So there was a lot of areas where, I mean, I felt it was difficult for me. But still, I could make it. And then I would say that, of course, men also supports women. You know, without their support, you can't go ahead in life. Like my parents were very good. Like they would support me after I got married. my husband, my in-laws and all. And even when I was in the male dominant institution like FNCCI, all my voters were men, and then they were men who really supported also, you know. So I think it makes a difference.
Great. It's so nice to hear that, because what I'm hearing from you is the story of a woman who sort of rose against quite a few odds in a very male-dominated society or a very male-dominated organization, not because she was a woman, but because she was a capable person.
Yes.
Do you think, now men and women are different, of course, physiologically we are different, but do you think that difference makes a difference in the way we are in a boardroom?
I don't think it should make a difference. You know, like when I joined FNCCI as a member, I would feel like there's some kind of a difference, you know, like gender. I could feel that gender difference. But when I reach the top position, then I feel I'm a human being, you know. I don't see myself as a woman or a man, you know. But I just feel, and I felt I'm a capable person, so I could do it, you know. So it really doesn't make a difference, gender.
Do you think, however, that after 50 years of the FNCCI being led by men, did you bring a new flavor? Did you bring something new to the table that perhaps was a breath of fresh air for everybody?
I think it was a proud moment, not only for me, but I think all the members, you know, they could proudly say that now we have a woman president, you know, and then it was a different kind of flavor and the way of working, and I was very much calm. Lot of patience, you know, like, because when we have a meeting in the boardroom and all with the EC members, each and every one, they have different opinion. We have a lot of debates. People are aggressive, you know, but I used to be very calm, and I would tell them, you know, to be calm. And I think they would listen also, you know, so that was different. And maybe like a lot of times they could not really be very aggressive towards me, you know, just because I'm a woman, you know. That's a kind of advantage also a women, they have, I feel. So it's of course, it's good for the organization also.
Right. In fact, you know, when you say that men were very proud that now they have a woman president, I'd just like to add a little something there. Not just men, but even women like me, outside of the FNCCI, who probably just read about it on their Facebook walls or in the newspaper or whatever, were extremely proud that now we have women going into all of these organizations that are historically dominated by men in a country like ours, and doing the right thing, getting to the right position. So for me as well, it was a moment of great pride. I was like, okay, yeah, you know what? We got a woman leading the FNCCI this time. So of course, that was something that everyone looked upon with a lot of respect at. Now let's talk a bit about you as an entrepreneur. Do you feel that women and men deal with struggles and failures differently in the workplace, in a business that they're running?
I do feel, you know, because women, I think we feel and we work differently than men, you know, because I feel that women are they are the better managers, you know, because women, they manage their house, they manage their family, you know, so I think they can perform better. And when you see a lot of weaknesses, a lot of shortcomings, a lot of failures maybe, you know, like you take it in a very different way. Like basically if you talk about me, I'm a very positive person. So I always like see and perceive things positively, you know, even like in the workplace, even my own business, you know, if many times you have to face some kind of difficulties or maybe some negativity, but still, you know, like I take those things in a very positive way. So that really matters, and that really gives you a strength, and that really gives you, I think, better ways of working in coming days also.
Do you also think that women are perceived differently than men in the workplace? Let's say you were to behave in a certain way, you would be perceived as bossy or arrogant. Whereas if a man was doing that, he would just be perceived as a leader. Have you personally ever faced that struggle, that sort of power dynamic at work there? Have you faced that?
Well, like
maybe at the FNCCI, maybe at work, wherever.
It depends. I think it depends from individual to individual, you know, like some people, they really want, they see women as a very calm, very quiet, very polite, but some men, I think, they like women who are really aggressive, who could really voice their opinion, really debate also, you know. So But I do feel that when you try to boss around, when you try to give your opinion, like even in FNCC, what I felt is like a lot of times when I was quiet, I was listening to them and all. I was a very good, maybe a leader, you know. Even like when I was just a vice president or a senior vice president, oh, she's good, you know, she's nice, like that. But when you try to debate with them, this is wrong, you know, like so many times it happens, you know, like because you have to think of the institution, because the institution comes first, you know. So that's why you don't go for individual benefits, you go for the institution benefits. So a lot of times I had to take a very strong decision also. And my tenure was extended also because of the COVID, you know, we couldn't do it. So extended about 7-8 months. So that time I had to face a lot of criticism, lot of I had to debates also during our meetings and all, but I stayed strong, you know. So some people, they appreciate it, but a lot of people, they said, oh, this is not right, you know. So wherever you voice your opinion, people, they don't like it, whether it's a workplace or whether it's any sector, you know, especially women, I feel.
Right. You spoke about how you had to face criticism. How do you deal with criticism?
I deal with criticism, as I told you, I'm a very positive person, so I feel that I don't take it as my weakness, you know, but I take it their weakness, whoever is criticizing, you know. So I just take it in a very, I'm very calm in that, you know. I don't really try to be aggressive. I don't try to like retaliate, but I stay calm. Because I feel that, they are born, or maybe like their mindset is that, you know, like they could not think beyond that, you know. So I take it very positively, and if I feel that there's some mistakes I'm doing, I always try to rectify it. I always appreciate if people say that you're doing something wrong, you know, I try to rectify also. But like without any, they just criticize without any rhyme and reason, you know, but like I just stay calm and quiet.
I love that you have this sort of maturity, and you know, you have been able to do this because it would take a lot of strength and a lot of willpower to reach to that level. Mentally, what do you tell yourself every time you find yourself stuck in anything that could be a struggle for you? What do you tell yourself? What is the dialogue in your head really? Because each one of us self-talks. You have conversations with yourself, I do as well. What do you tell yourself at a time you're struggling?
I feel that I could come out from that struggle, you know, because I start my day with the art of living. I do a lot of breathing practices, I do meditation, I'm a little bit spiritual also. So I think it gives you strength. So whenever there are a lot of difficult times you have to face in life, you know, maybe in a workplace, maybe a business, maybe institution, maybe at home also, but you can deal it. I feel that I can come out of it, you know, because there's a strength inside me, I feel, you know, like even as a child, I could feel that, you know, overcoming my shyness and then different, to voice out my opinion and all. So same kind of feeling I get. So I feel that I could come out from all these struggles and all.
Sure. So what I also understand is maybe the whole fact that as a kid you were shy and then you came out of it, you overcame that. That in itself gave you a lot of confidence. You know what? If I can do this, maybe I can overcome this obstacle or that upheaval or that struggle as well. Is that correct?
Yes, because there was a lot of upheavals also, you know, in my life, but that strength was always there. And as a child, you know, when I could struggle and come out like this, you know, why not? Because I'm an adult now, and then I think I'm much more experienced, you know, I've seen life, you know, and I've seen difficult times, I've seen good times and bad times also, so I feel that I could do it.
Great.
So that's a kind of confidence you gain. And then I think when you are doing something good, you know, like when you are, even your business, workplace and all, then you feel confident, you know, and then you feel that you could really achieve things which you dream.
How important is it for women to have a dream that they want to achieve? How important is it? Because a lot of times why just women? Everybody. We get stuck in our day to day, right? So we're living from one day to the next. You're answering mails, going for work, coming back home, and you're pretty much like a horse with blinders. How important do you think it is to have that one dream? Because when I talk to you, I understand as a child, you were looking up to your father and you were looking up to him, and that was, in a way, it made an impression on you. You wanted to be that person. You wanted to go there and be a leader and speak to people, inspire people, impact people. Later on, you did get to live that life in your own way. How important is it to have that one dream to sort of aim towards?
I think life is beautiful, so I feel that everyone should have a dream. Without dream, it's meaningless, I think, and you have to fulfill that dream. Of course, for women, like, I mean, in Nepal, you know, like, I don't say there's no glass ceiling, you know, but I always felt that I will smash the glass ceiling and I'll go ahead, you know, to achieve my dream. So I think everyone, not women, even men. So whenever I go in motivational classes for the youth and other women groups and all, I always tell them, you know, you have a dream and you can do it.
You can do it, right?
Yes.
So not only did you smash the glass ceiling, you did it how? With so much of panache and so much of gusto. After the FNCCI, so let's talk about during the entire, you know, working with FNCCI, the tenure and all of that. But after that, what has that taught you? What has that experience given you? You gave a lot to the organization, I understand, because you were leading it from the front with your thoughts, your actions, your words and all of that. But what did you gain from there, from that experience?
I think I gained a lot. I gained a lot of knowledge. I could interact with different kind of people, not only in Nepal, but internationally also, you know. So I could gain a lot of knowledge from every event, every moment. I was learning new things. I think it's going to help me in the coming days also. So it's like a give and take, you know. I contributed my time, I contributed my ideas, I contributed, in fact, myself, you know, to FNCCI. But I feel that I gain a lot from there also. I made a lot of friends, maybe a few enemies, of course, you know, but like a lot of friends also.
When you
that, I think that really matters, you know.
Of course. The associations and the relationships that you create along the way are so important.
Yes.
I like how you say I created a lot of friends and maybe a few enemies. Do you sometimes feel that as a woman, do you get more, because I've never heard a man saying I created a few enemies. You know, it's just not something that they would talk about maybe. I love that honesty that you bring and I love how you just said it. Do you think sometimes that the emotional connections with people is very important to you?
Of course it is.
It is. At the FNCCI, when you make like a band of supporters, you've got this group, that's your core group, right? Yes. How important were they to your success, your core group?
I think very, very important. Right. Because I think without their support, I wouldn't have achieved this, you know. So it's always, it's good to have a supporters.
To have that core group by your side, strong.
Yeah, of course, strong.
You had that as well.
Yeah. And telling you, you know, not only like praising you, but telling you, you know, what you are doing wrong is not right, you know, it's wrong. You have to rectify it. So that I appreciate.
Right. When your core group does that.
Yes, of course.
Because when I think about failure, I also always think about, and I try to evaluate, who might the people be? Because you, of course, do a lot of brain and a lot of thinking work yourself when you're struggling, when you're going through something. But we need this army, this sort of wall that protects us, yet is always the first person who's going to critically evaluate us when we're making mistakes. So you did have the core group, and their support is extremely instrumental, isn't it?
Of course. I think whichever field you are, you know, you have supporters and you have people who criticize you also, you know. So it's up to you how you take it. It's better to have 5 supporters than 100 people who just talk or praise you, you know, like in front of you and behind they criticize. You know,
right.
So.
Tell me one thing.
The honest support is, the honesty when they support you, that is matters, I think.
Right. So I was reading a survey very interestingly a few years ago, I think, that said that when a woman makes a mistake or fails in the workplace or struggles with something in the workplace, the chances are she's going to blame herself. So all of that, you know, all that blame, all of that guilt becomes internal. On the other hand, chances that men, when they've, you know, they maybe make a mistake, they fail or whatever it is, the chances are that they blame the external environment. what are you normally, what's your first reaction to anything that's not going right? Is
I
it
think,
your fault? Is it something else?
I think Nepal is a patriarchal culture, so I think men feel that way, you know. But if you ask me personally, you know, like even if I face these kind of things at home or even my workplace or even within the institution, first I think maybe am I doing something wrong? Maybe is there like a way that I could rectify it, you know? So I take the blame first myself, you know, and then I try to think of it.
Right. Do you feel self-doubt?
Very rarely.
Very rarely.
Yeah.
So all that years of confidence is playing
Yes,
up into
yes,
a woman
yes,
who
yeah.
doesn't sort of doubt herself maybe. Maybe the actions but not the intention ever is what I'm guessing. Great. So we're coming towards the end of this and I just want to know a couple of things from you. As a woman, why did you even choose something like the FNCCI, such a male-dominated organization? Did you do it for the larger cause, that you wanted to truly impact the way women were perceived in Nepal? Or did you do it because you thought, you know what, this seems like a great place to start, let me just go?
I think as a child, I always wanted to do something different, you know, and I wanted to do something, I wanted to contribute to the society or maybe to the country, you know, and then maybe I was confused as a child, you know, which area to choose. But later, I thought this is the right place for me. Not only that, I could lead a male-dominant institution because I'm from the private sector background, so that was the right place for me. During that time, I got a lot of offers from 1-2 political parties to join them, and then they would give me a Samanupati seat also. But I felt, no, that was an easier way, you know, like you just join them and you get the seat for that. But, and I would have become a member of parliament. But I said, no, I'll struggle and I'll reach that top. So I could make an impact for women of Nepal also, you know, that they could also reach that place, you know, if they do hard work, if they are determined, if they could really put 100%, and if they do it with a passion, you know, they could reach there. So I think that is also one of the reasons. Maybe if I were a male, I wouldn't have chosen that place because there are many males, you know, like going into leadership. But when I reached, there were certain times when I thought like maybe this is not a right place, you know, male dominant, so much of struggle, so much of challenges, you know, being a woman I'm facing and all. But then from inside, I felt, no, this is the right place. If you reach there, you could impact a lot of women of Nepal, you know. So I always say that I don't want to be, of course, I'm a first woman president of FNCCI, but I don't want to be the last also, you know. I want more women to come, and I would like to support them also.
Absolutely, because you set an example for an entire generation. I'm guessing that just knowing that it was possible, just knowing that somebody had done it, gives so many more young women so much hope and so much to look forward to. But here's my point. What is your one message to all the young people out there who are struggling? Because in the last 2 years, our world has seen struggle of many different kinds, from health to relationships, to even finances, to the way the governments are struggling, to the way economies are struggling. What would you like to say, in a nutshell, to a young person who's struggling right now and doesn't really see any kind of light at the end of the tunnel, or worse, is languishing and doesn't really even have a dream to look up to? You know that feeling when you're just sort of just going with the wind and you're not really dreaming for something. What would your message be for them?
I think you get one life, you know, so that's why you have to make that life meaningful. So for that, you need to dream. And you will achieve that dream, but for that, you really need to chase your dream. You have to be positive, you know. And then I always tell everyone that the attitude makes a lot of difference. No matter where you are, no matter what position you reach, you know, but the attitude has to be right.
Great. I just love that, because you talk about the attitude, and I think this show is about that. It is about understanding how to cultivate a positive attitude in the face of adversity, because we start with failure, and then through this conversation, it's been such an eye-opener for me to understand what it must have taken for you to go from where you were, a shy little girl, a girl who possibly, you know, was living a little simple life with her sister and her parents, yet somebody who dreamed for the stars and somebody who finally achieved it. Thank you so much, ma'am. It's been a pleasure having this conversation with you. For me, it's been this this other new window. You know, you've opened up another new window into my life because I can now see something that was earlier just invisible to me. Thank you so much for being an example, not just for me, for an entire generation, and for showing us that it is possible. Thank you so much. Wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Today's conversation with Bhavani ma'am gave me such strong insights into the mind of a brilliant woman. Somebody who not only knows what she wants, but somebody who believes in the power of dreaming and the right attitude. For me, what was most inspiring about her story was the fact that not only did she manage to change herself from this shy girl into this strong, independent woman with a voice and a mind of her own, but she also managed to express that voice in front of rooms full of men. I think that what we can all learn from her is that, yes, men and women might be different, but this cognitive difference has no role to play in the boardroom. In fact, a woman, if she so desires, can reach great heights of success in the workplace. Thank you so much, Bhavani ma'am, for being such a wonderful icon, somebody that we look up to. Thank you so much for being you, and thank you so much for being this most gracious lady who so willingly and honestly shared so much of herself. Had I not asked you the first question, I would have perhaps never known that behind the facade of this strong lady, this empowered woman, stands a little girl who was once shy, who was once not willing to speak up, a girl who was scared and inhibited. I love the way you've managed to transform yourself into an icon we look up to, and I know that as you do so, you're inspiring generations of young women. Thank you so much for being an inspiration to all of us.